In the waning days of the old order, two kingdoms stood in stark contrast. One of worldly might, the other of divine promise. On one side was Herod the Great, a ruler anointed by Rome's political machine and supported by the religious leaders of the Jewish people. He ruled with cold, calculating precision. Over a land he sought to restore to its former glory, and thereby also secure a heritage for his own greatness. On the other side, there was a child, yet unborn, entrusted to the belly of a young woman. This was a divine child who would lead humanity away from the former glories to build a new glory for the entire world at the expense of his own greatness. It's with this contrast in mind that we reflect back upon our Christmas story. Now the land of Judea lay oppressed under the shadow of worldly power. Herod the Great, a ruler anointed by Rome and accepted by the Jewish religious elite, sat upon the throne of Jerusalem. His reign was founded upon fear and brutality and marked by political cunning and grand edifices. The Jerusalem temple, made magnificent under his rule, it stood as a testament not only to his ambition to make a glorious name for himself, but also to his shrewd alliance with the religious authorities. By fulfilling ancient prophecies of the king as a temple builder, Herod sought to secure the support of many. He sought the support of religious leaders who had initially denied his faith and refused to acknowledge him as a Jew. But they came to accept him as a protector of their traditions and their privileges. The acceptance of the religious elite was often encouraged through gifts of influence and access into the circles of power. As Herod's power grew, so did the suffering of the common people. Taxes weighed heavily, religious laws burdened the faithful, and the threat of violence and exclusion loomed over any who dared to challenge the bloody order. It was a time of oppression where the powerful thrived and the vulnerable languished. In this climate of oppression and uneasy alliance between worldly power and religious authority, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world would be registered. Joseph, a humble blue-collar worker, prepared in Nazareth for the trip to Bethlehem with his betrothed Mary, who was with child. Unknown to them, the child in Mary's womb would be the seed of a revolution that would overturn the notions of institutional religion and state authority. As the Holy Family journeyed, the contrast grew between Herod's kingdom and the one that Mary carried in her womb. While Herod's rule was drenched in blood, while Herod mercilessly purged his ranks of dissent and threats, to include murdering his own wife and 3 of his sons. The coming child was to establish a kingdom built on mercy, self-sacrifice, and love. Even the love for the threats within his own ranks, and even love for his enemies. Arriving in Bethlehem, Mary and Joseph, they found no room within the guest lodging. It would be next to the feeding trough of household animals. Far from the opulent palaces of Herod, that Mary would give birth to Jesus. His arrival, heralded by angels and marked by a brilliant star, signaled the dawn of a new era, one that would offer humanity an alternative to the crushing and bloody systems of the world. Shepherds came from the fields and wise men journeyed from afar, drawn to the child who would challenge the very nature of power and authority. Herod, ever vigilant against threats to the delicate balance he had struck, caught wind of the rumors of a newborn king. His reaction was swift and calculated, a move that the religious authorities, so deeply married to him now, could do little to oppose. Herod issued a decree to eliminate any potential threat to his power, regardless of the price that would be paid by the innocents. The religious leaders would cry foul more vehemently over the inclusion and compassionate love for others that will be introduced by the Christmas baby than they would stand in opposition to the arrogance and mercilessness by which Herod ruled. As Jesus grew, so did his revolutionary message. He gathered followers from the least. He taught a new way of living, and he demonstrated a form of leadership that prioritized service over domination. Where worldly powers valued strength, Jesus championed vulnerability. Where society marginalized the weak, Jesus placed the weak at the center. Where religious leaders burdened people with laws, Jesus offered grace and freedom. The life, teachings, and sacrificial death of Jesus established a new institution of power on earth, one that offered a genuine alternative to the oppressive systems of this world. His kingdom was not a distant ideal, but a present reality breaking into the world. It challenged both political tyranny and religious methods. Jesus launched a revolution of the heart, a complete reimagining of what true power and authority would look like. Now, as we stand on the cusp of Christmas, we are invited again to recognize the profound implications of the first Noel. The baby in the manger was not just a sweet religious symbol. The baby was the founder of a revolutionary movement, born from the future, but something that we can live now. The baby of the future will be, has offered today's can be. If we will work to wrestle Christmas from the distant past and the distant future, we can bring today a bit of the awe of the past that God came to earth and a bit of the future's fullness that we look forward to being completed. We can bring that into our lives today. This Christmas, let us celebrate with renewed understanding and purpose. As we envision the nativity scene, let us feel the quickening of the pulse of anticipation that began to hammer away on that holy night 2,000 years ago. Let us recognize in the Christ child the birth of a new way of being, one that rebels against the world's ways of power over and embraces the transformative power of service and sacrifice. This Christmas, may we be filled anew with the revolutionary spirit of Bethlehem. This city was the epicenter of an earthquake that on Christmas Day shook the world and turned it upside down. Turn it upside down so that now we are led by a king who says that the power over ways of the world are beneath his ways. But to be marked by the suffering that the world rejects and the suffering that the world places low, the sufferings of this world's sickness, this world's oppression and exclusion, to be marked by the sufferings is to be elevated to rule next to Jesus. Christmas invites us to reject the necessary markers that the world looks for in our lives for success. The first Christians were marked as rebels. And may we continue in the rebel spirit, declaring that in sorrow, we will still hold out for true joy. In oppression, we will still extol real freedom. In the midst of suffering, we will seek genuine peace. And in the midst of hatred, we will choose love. Maybe we remembered on this Christmas that we can be bearers. We are invited to be ambassadors of the rebellious kingdom where the low become elevated. And from that high place, justice rolls down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. For the light that flickered into being in that humble manger still shines today, and it beckons us towards a future bright with the promise of God's presence and the fulfillment of his eternal purposes. Let us step boldly into the future today, ready to embody and extend the revolutionary kingdom that was established by Jesus. For unto us a child has been born, a son is given, who has established a new power on earth, not one that is far off in heaven, but one that is now. One that offers hope, freedom, and a genuine alternative to the oppressive systems of the world. And of the increase of this government and its peace, there will be no end. As we stand here, considering the profound truth of Christ's revolutionary kingdom, we find ourselves at a crossroads. The world around us still grapples with darkness, the shadows of oppression and injustice and fear that have plagued humanity since time immemorable. Yet we are not left without hope or purpose. Just as that first Christmas night pierced the darkness with the light of divine love, we too are called to be bearers of that same transformative light. In this moment, we have an opportunity to embody the rebellious spirit of Christ's kingdom, not through grand gestures of worldly power, but through simple, small things. Simple, small acts of empowerment that we can remember in such things as the lighting of a candle against darkness. Each flame that we ignite, each little light that we spark, it's more than just a source of illumination. It's a declaration. It's a declaration that we choose hope over despair. We choose love over hate. And we choose courage over fear. As we prepare to turn on our candles, I invite us to remember the words of John's gospel. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. In lighting these candles, we're not merely participating in tradition. We're joining in a rebellion. It is a rebellion against the darkness that seeks to engulf our world. We're standing in solidarity with the Christ child on Christmas, who came in a small way as a light to all people, challenging the great powers of the world. So I invite you now to take up your candles. They can feel small now, but they grow big together. They grow big together, and they grow immense when they join the burning fire of Jesus' love, a love that is the light of the entire world. As you have your candles now, I invite you to let the flame represent your desire, that through our highs and lows, we want to carry forward the revolutionary message of Christmas. Let your light symbolize a pledge today. It's a pledge to be a light in our homes, in our communities, and in our world. It's a pledge to be a light, to love, justice, and compassion. In the simple, profound act of holding a little light, we join with simple power, divine power, and our light joins a great cloud of witnesses. A great cloud of witnesses that throughout history has chosen to stand against darkness. And our light becomes part of the ongoing story of God's kingdom breaking through into our world.